A big decision in BC's Supreme Court today. Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou lost the first round of her attempt to avoid extradition to the United States, where she's accused of fraud and violating sanctions against Iran. The decision rests on the concept of double criminality, essentially that a crime in the U.S. must be a crime here as well. It means Meng Wanzhou stays put under house arrest in Vancouver, and it ratchets up the tension between Canada and China, which has accused Canada of being an accomplice of the United States. Robin Gill explains the ruling.
Meng Wanzhou did not have a look of defeat going into BC's Supreme Court, but this wasn't to be her day.
Fraud is broad. That is the heart of the decision.
Despite having hired some of the best and most expensive legal minds in Canada, Meng lost round one. Associate Chief Justice Heather Holmes ruled the effects of the U.S. sanctions may properly play a role in the double criminality analysis. In other words, the charges she faces in the United States would stand in Canada. The CFO of Huawei and the daughter of its founder is accused of misleading American banks by neglecting to disclose a subsidiary company called Skycom, which did business in Iran. The U.S. says she committed fraud and violated sanctions against Iran. Meng was arrested in Canada in December 2018 at the request of the U.S. Her lawyers argued that Canada didn't have sanctions with Iran at the time, and Meng should be let go. The Crown argued that the overall allegation of fraud would be considered a crime in Canada, and therefore she must be extradited. Justice Holmes sided with federal lawyers. Ms. Meng's approach to the double criminality analysis would seriously limit Canada's ability to fulfill its international obligations in the extradition context for fraud and other economic crimes. Huawei Canada issued a statement that the company was disappointed and repeatedly expressed confidence in Ms. Meng's innocence. Huawei continues to stand with Ms. Meng in her pursuit for justice and freedom. Meng still has other legal maneuverings. There's a civil suit against the RCMP and Border Security, alleging that during the arrest, they questioned her without her lawyers present and took possession of her electronic devices.
They're betting the farm on the charter argument next.
Meng's team says there are still other legal rounds to go, so there isn't an appeal just yet. So she won't be taking off the electronic monitoring anklet that has become an accessory and a condition of her bail. Meng is paying for her own security while she's under house arrest here in Vancouver, and it doesn't look like she's going anywhere, especially to China, anytime soon. Donna?
Robin Gill in Vancouver, thanks. So much is resting on this case beyond the fate of Meng Wanzhou. Canadians Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor have been detained for more than 500 days in China without any consular access since the pandemic began. The Chinese government took them into custody shortly after Meng's arrest. And after today's ruling, China is even more furious. Abigail Bimman is in Ottawa with reaction to the ruling and what happens next. Abigail?
Donna, China is not happy with this development. In a strongly worded statement, the embassy here in Ottawa warns Canada not to go further down the wrong path, calling Meng's arrest arbitrary, saying the purpose of the United States is to bring down Huawei and Canada is an accomplice, and calling the whole case a grave political incident. But whether China chooses to retaliate and how remains to be seen. Initial reports in Chinese media suggest Canada has lost judicial independence to the U.S. The Global Times printing it makes Canada a pathetic clown and a scapegoat.
I think that in the hot and sour soup that is the Canada-China relationship, this has added a little bit more vinegar to that soup, and that we better watch Chinese attitudes carefully and address them as patiently and honestly as we can.
At the heart of this, there is much concern over what happens to Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, the two Canadians arbitrarily detained in the days following Meng's arrest, widely viewed as retaliation.
Abigail, what about the political reaction? Have we heard from the Canadian government?
Well, the Foreign Affairs Minister issued a statement in response to the ruling saying Canada will continue to be transparent about the extradition process and advocating for the release of Kovrig and Spavor, saying that continues to be Canada's top priority. No comment from Justice Minister David Lametti today, and the Prime Minister has been clear about letting our independent justice system perform its duty. But that's been a big sticking point with Beijing, which doesn't subscribe to the rule of law. And now we're one step closer to the Justice Minister having to make a decision in this case, whether to send Meng to the United States. But this is a long road with many legal steps to go through first, including potential appeals.
It's critical that we are clear and resolute in communicating our principles, and as part of that, our commitment to the rule of law, and how in Canada the extradition process is based on law, not on politics.
So potentially more pressure added to Canada-China relations. But in terms of Ottawa and Washington, we got a statement from the U.S. Department of Justice thanking Canada for its continued assistance in this matter. Donna?
Abigail Bimman in Ottawa, thank you.